Let me also congratulate them for all the good work that they're doing to promote journalism in India. I think this award and this recognition today is for my team, and my channel, and for the journalism that we do, and for the purpose that we hope we serve. What is the purpose, we ask ourselves. I think what we set out to do was to tell India's story in India's words. The show I do, it's called Gravitas, and the tagline is making sense of the news. But essentially, we're trying to make sense of the world through India's perspective. Ladies and gentlemen, I've said this in the past, and I say it again, and I believe this, that our world today is a grand storytelling competition. We're all striving to present our national, cultural, personal, all kinds of stories in the most persuasive manner. I remember reading somewhere in the olden times, they used to say that if you want to poison a people, you should poison their wells. They'll have contaminated water, they'll die. Now it is said that if you want to poison a people, you poison their stories. When you poison their stories, you contaminate their minds, and it's worse than dropping bombs, because then you take away the self-confidence of a country. You devastate their morale. And I think that is more damaging any day than poisoning water or poisoning wells. You make a country doubt its abilities. And we Indians have been through a very difficult phase where we were colonized, and while we achieved independence 75 years ago, I think somewhere a lot of us are still colonized in our minds. We need to come out of that. So it is important to tell stories and tell the right stories in the right manner, because stories sway people. They change the course of policies, politics, and indeed the world. And this is my favorite example from the Second World War. America had a list of cities in Japan that they wanted to bomb with the atom bomb. And on that list was the city of Kyoto. But the US then had a Secretary of War, and he decided that Kyoto should not be part of the list. We know which two cities were bombed eventually, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. He removed Kyoto because this Secretary of War in America had been to Kyoto on his honeymoon, and he saw how beautiful Kyoto is and how rich it is culturally, and he believed that that culture should not be destroyed. So the story of Kyoto won, and the story of Nagasaki and Hiroshima lost. Which is why it is very important to also control your story, to actively shape it. We are a country of 1.4 billion people. We have more than 800 channels. We have a lot of content, and our phone is full of stories and videos and reels and all sorts of things that you all consume. We are a very aware and politically engaged people. From the tea seller to the CEO of a company, everybody knows what's happening. They can talk to you about Biden's policies, and they can also weigh in on what's happening in Bihar and everything in between. But we seek validation from the foreign press. If you've seen what's been making news in the past couple of days, you would know. The New York Times writes something about a policy in India, and it immediately becomes a Twitter trend. But why do we need a certificate from the foreign press? We may trash it, we may say that we don't care about what the New York Times is saying, but we do, because we discuss it. It affects us, we react to it, we consume it. The Economist says something about who we should vote for in an Indian election, and it becomes part of the political debate. And while we've achieved a lot in India in the last 75 years, we've not had a single newspaper in this country. Can you imagine an Indian newspaper publishing a headline about something in the US or the UK, and for that making it to the big political story of that country? Will American leaders debate what is written in the Indian Express? Will British leaders debate what's written in the Times of India? They're not affected by what we are saying, but we are affected by what they say about us. If there's disturbance in Kashmir, the BBC reports it, the Al Jazeera reports it. And they use their own lens, their own editorial biases, and all media is agenda-driven. I was discussing it with someone earlier today. India's first newspaper, Hickey's Gazette, was a very anti-imperial newspaper. It had an agenda, it took sides. Media takes sides, and that is okay. The argument I'm making is very simple. We are a land of epics like the Mahabharata and Ramayana, and yet we've allowed others to take control of our story for way too long. And that is what we try to do at WION still. I started with talking about our purpose, and that is our purpose, to tell India's story. And we found a willing and a very welcoming audience in all of you and a lot of Indians. I'm very happy to share with you that only 40% of our audience and our viewers are in India. The remaining 60% are outside India, which gives us a lot of hope. That in Europe, in Africa, in America, in Southeast Asia, there is an audience that wants to listen to India's perspective on what's happening in the world, that wants to know what India feels about global developments. And it's only time for a country that is ready to assume its role as a global leader to have a voice like that. When we began this journey in WION 5 years back, we're a young channel, we believed in the product, we believed what we were trying to do. But we never imagined that in so short a time, we'll get the kind of response that we do now. I was in Ukraine earlier this year, and people saw the mic, and there were some Indians, and they walked up to us and they said, "Ye hamara channel hai." And that gives us a lot of encouragement to do more of what we are doing. The numbers encourage both me and my team, and awards like these, thank you very much, also inspire us to do better every day. So on behalf of my team at WION, I want to once again thank you for the award.
I also feel a tiny bit of pressure, pressure to say something intelligent, to be good and really make an impact. I've been thinking a lot about what it means to make an impact, and I've been wondering whether when I started out, I did so with the intention of making an impact. And the answer is yes. I mean, I think 10 years ago when I started working, all I thought about was how I would one day take over the world. How everyone, everywhere would know who I am and how hardworking and talented and intelligent and bright and flawless I am. Really, I wanted to be perfect and I wanted the world to know it. 10 years later, I'm receiving one of the most prestigious awards on this global platform. And I have no idea how I got here or what I've done to deserve this. But what I do know is, if it falls to me in any way to lead by example, be a role model, or make any kind of impact, I want to do it in an as human and as flawed a way as possible. Because after all these years, the thing I've realized is that it's the flaws that make you. Perfection is boring. Like, really boring. So, tonight, I want to take a moment with you all to celebrate my flaws, along with my strengths. For example, I'm terrible at spelling, like really bad. But I do know what to say to someone who's vulnerable. I have no sense of geography, zero, and I do not get directions. But I have a deep sense of respect and regard for different cultures. My general knowledge is widely known to be weak, but my emotional intelligence is something that I've worked really hard to cultivate. I have a tendency to be hard on myself with regards to my weight and my appearance, but I never say no to a French fry. Because, YOLO. Through my movies and my characters, I've tried to celebrate flawed people, because at the end of the day, it's the imperfections that make a character compelling. So what I'm trying to say is, being yourself is truly the greatest impact that you can make. In the movies and in life, you do not have to be perfect. You just have to bring everything you have, the lows, the highs, and the real things that we're actually afraid of speaking about. There is no greater impact than being yourself. I want to end with a few thank yous. Thank you to you all for patiently listening to me. Thank you to my team for constantly being there for me. Thank you to my family, my mum for bringing me onto this planet, my father, my sister Shaheen who has helped put my thoughts into words, my husband Ranbir. I mean, I don't know what, I need to give them separate award to genuinely put up with me on a daily basis. I am immensely proud to be here tonight as a representative of my country, a country that has built both me and my career. India is a country that at its core values diversity above anything else, and it's a song that I hope to sing all over the world. And lastly, when it comes to making an impact, I hope I can continue to do so in whatever way possible. But for now, tonight, this award has genuinely made an impact on me. Me and my little one who has relentlessly kicked me through this speech. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
You come from a film family and have achieved everything at such a young age. Today, at 24, is it too good too soon as a phenomena, you think?
I have to say that whenever people ask me about my achievements, Karan, about how, you're doing so well, how do you feel, you're doing this, you're doing that. To me, I'm just doing. I have no idea of how well I'm doing and what that means for me and whether this is too good too soon or whether I'm going to burn out. I think that if I sit back and assess every step I take, then I'm going to be taking myself way too seriously. All I want to do is give a lot of heart into all my performances, into every character that I play, and I want to be remembered for the movies that I'm a part of and the characters that I play, because that's the kind of impact movies had on me as a child. So I want to be that impact on the younger generation and the older generation and everybody. So yeah, I never look at myself as a third person. I'm just going with the flow, as they say. So I think definitely initially I was very vulnerable, and I was also very hungry to prove and make a point. And I want to say with age, but I don't think I should say that since I'm 24, but maybe with experience and just, as you said, I've been working since I'm 17, but in the last 2 years, there just came a bit of a realization to me, and that is the only constant in life is change. So today, I may be getting a lot of love, tomorrow I won't, maybe. Today, I may be getting a lot of hate, tomorrow I won't, maybe. So some things are like, some days you may wake up and say that, okay, I wish I'm being better at this, or I have a better, I had better diction, I had better this. I can always talk about what I don't have and what what I can do better. But instead of whining about how they're comparing me to people, I can just better it. And I can just try to be the better version of myself. So definitely I'm super detached from my work, and I don't want to get too attached to even the person that I am today. When people come up to me and say, you're so inspiring and all of those things, and what I do for other people, I feel really happy, I feel grateful. I take a moment to remember that, okay, this is something this is what you really work for, to make an impact. But then that instantly I just like snap out of it, and I just tell myself that this is not going to be there tomorrow.
And as a young Indian woman, Alia, is there a sense of responsibility you have to your country, to other women who are inspired by you, to younger girls, who feel like, you are their role model? How much of that ethos really creeps into your thoughts when you take on a film or, are on a public platform? How much of that are you conscious of?
So when I take on a film, I don't keep the audience in mind, and I don't think I should as well, because then that would make my decisions very calculated and very boring. I mean, I go with my gut and I go with my heart. I like to promote the idea of people can make mistakes. That is okay, and as a celebrity, I'm still a human being. I know what I do, and I really am not embarrassed of that, because if I don't say, I don't know, how am I going to know? Like, if I don't ask the questions, how am I going to get the answers? Up until a particular time, I was constantly scared. And that was the time before I had failed. I've had done 10 films, and usme se one has been not a good film and it did not do well. Until that time, I was always really scared, very passionate, very like obsessive. The minute that happened, it's like my father told me, I became a mortal again. So when you touch success, you feel like you're immortal all of a sudden. And that could happen to anybody, which is like people are constantly telling me, please keep your head on your shoulders, don't fly too high. And I was like, what are they saying? Why are they saying this? And then I realized that, okay, things can change, your films cannot do well, you cannot do well. And suddenly everything changed after that, and I was just brought back to ground zero. And everything after that is not, I would not say detached, like I'm not passionate about my work, and I don't feel like today if I don't have a good day at work, I'll come back home and I will be stressed out about it. I won't be happy, and I'll give 200% the next day. But I can say I'm quite objective of the work that I do. And I go with my gut and I try to play around. So if I overthink my steps, then it's like, you're taking yourself too seriously, and that will show on screen. Okay, she thinks she's a very good actor. But the minute I really, really believe in my part and my character, that just gives me that kind of ease to play with it and just, have fun.
A bit of a surprise addition, shall we say, and a surprise for my husband too, who has no idea what I'm going to say. When I told our lovely girls, Krishna and Anushka, about being here today, they were also quite surprised. But look, the reason why I'm here is really quite simple. And it's because Rishi and I are each other's best friends. We're one team. And I could not imagine being anywhere else but here today with all of you to show my support to him and to the party. As you'd expect, there's been a lot about Rishi in the media, about who he is, what he likes, what he doesn't like, what motivates him, and so forth. Now, some of it is accurate. I'm afraid he does love a good rom-com. The cheesier, the better even. And some of it is not so true. So you'll be relieved to hear that episodes of Emily in Paris are not informing his outlook on the EU. But in all seriousness, though, as we gather here today to look to the future of the UK, I'm so grateful to have this chance to talk to all of you about the man who is leading us there. Now, let me start with one word that sums up my husband, and that is aspiration. Aspiration runs through his DNA like it does this party's. Aspiration is what drove his family many years ago to move to the UK. And aspiration is what drives Rishi to build for a better country and a better life for all our young people to look forward to. Rishi and I met when we were 24, when we were both studying abroad in America. Right from the very beginning, I was struck by two things about him. No, not his smart suits or his love for hoodies. He actually didn't own either back then. But two much more important things. His deep love for his home, the United Kingdom, and his sincere desire to ensure as many people as possible have a chance to have the opportunities he was lucky enough to have had. It completely energized him. At the time, I wondered if this passion was just youthful optimism. Today, I'm not sure youthful optimism is a term you can still use about a man in his 40s. But Rishi's energy and passion for the future of this country are as strong as ever. That is why he has been a lifelong conservative. That is why he entered politics almost a decade ago. And that is why it is the greatest honor imaginable for him to be Prime Minister, leading the country and the party he loves. As I said earlier, getting together with Rishi almost 20 years ago was not the easy route. It meant, in our early days together, a complicated, long-distance relationship. But let me tell you, on the other hand, being with Rishi was the easiest decision of my life. He's fun, he's thoughtful, he's compassionate, and he has an incredible zest for life. But what drew me to him most was his strength of character, his honesty, his integrity, with a firm understanding of right from wrong. It's what I'm still drawn to even today, after 14 years of being married. As you may know, Rishi is the son of a GP and a pharmacist. His parents moved to the UK from East Africa with very little, but they built here a life for themselves and for their children. For Rishi's dad, being involved in his patients' lives, beyond the doctor's surgery, was a big part of how he saw his role. Rishi's mum trained as a pharmacist, and years later, after saving enough to open her own shop, she too went above and beyond the call of duty to build deep-rooted relationships with her customers. It meant Rishi and his younger brother and sister grew up in a household entrenched in their community in Southampton, and they were wholly devoted to it. That love of community grew in Rishi too, from a very young age, as the most natural extension of how he sees hope. And that connection with people is the source of his political life. Rishi cares deeply about this party and the values that underpin it. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you all for the support you've already shown him and for the warm welcome you've given our young family. Please know that Rishi is working hard to do the right thing for the country, not just for now, but for the long term, with honesty and with integrity. That is why he has told some hard truths already, and knowing him, he'll continue to do so. He shares your values, and he knows how much you care about the future of the UK, but also about the struggles and the challenges that people are facing today, and the potential we all see in a better tomorrow, not just for a few, but for everyone in our country. Just as with our girls, he wants the next generation to grow up in a country that offers them opportunity and hope, a country that helps them build rock-solid foundations, with a deep respect for hard work and the confidence to fulfill their potential, and a love for community in all its forms. Sometimes, when the going gets tough, I remind Rishi that he's fighting for his values, that he's fighting for this party's values, knowing that it's a hard road ahead, but success is hard won. Rishi, you know this. You know that doing the right thing for the long term, even when it's hard, is the right thing to do. And I hope you also know how proud you make our girls and me every single day.
It is such an honor to be here at the inaugural Time to Thrive conference, but it's a little weird too. Here I am in this room because of an organization whose work that I deeply, deeply admire. And I'm surrounded by people who make it their life's work to make other people's lives better, profoundly better. Some of you teach young people. Some of you help young people heal and to find their voice. Some of you listen. Some of you take action. Some of you are young people yourselves, in which case it's even weirder for a person like me to be speaking to you. It's weird because here I am, an actress, representing, at least in some sense, an industry that places crushing standards on all of us. And not just young people, everyone. Standards of beauty, of a good life, of success. Standards that I hate to admit have affected me. You have ideas planted in your head, thoughts you never had before, that tell you how you have to act, how you have to dress, and who you have to be. And I have been trying to push back, to be authentic, to follow my heart, but it can be hard. But that's why I'm here, in this room. All of you, all of us can do so much more together than any one person can do alone. And I hope that that thought bolsters you as much as it does me. I hope that the workshops you go to over the next few days give you strength. Because I can only imagine that there are days when you've worked longer hours than your boss realizes or cares about just to help a kid who you know can make it. Days where you feel completely alone, undermined, or hopeless. And I know that there are people in this room who go to school every day and get treated like shit for no reason. Or you go home and you feel like you can't tell your parents the whole truth about yourself. And beyond putting yourself in one box or another, you worry about the future, about college, or work, or even your physical safety. And trying to create that mental picture of your life, of what on earth is gonna happen to you, can crush you a little bit every day. And it is toxic, and painful, and deeply unfair. And sometimes it's the little insignificant stuff that can tear you down. Now, I try not to read gossip as a rule, but the other day, a website ran an article with a picture of me wearing sweatpants on the way to the gym. And the writer asked, "Why does this petite beauty insist upon dressing like a massive man?" Because I like to be comfortable. There are pervasive stereotypes about masculinity and femininity that define how we're all supposed to act, dress, and speak, and they serve no one. Anyone who defies these so-called norms becomes worthy of comment and scrutiny, and the LGBT community knows this all too well. Yet there is courage all around us. The football hero Michael Sam, the actress Laverne Cox, the musicians Tegan and Sarah Quinn, the family that supports their daughter or son who has come out. And there is courage in this room, all of you. And I'm inspired to be in this room because every single one of you is here for the same reason. You're here because you've adopted as a core motivation the simple fact that this world would be a whole lot better if we just made an effort to be less horrible to one another. If we took just 5 minutes to recognize each other's beauty instead of attacking each other for our differences, that's not hard. It's really an easier and better way to live. And ultimately, it saves lives. Then again, it can be the hardest thing. Because loving other people starts with loving ourselves and accepting ourselves. And I know many of you have struggled with this. And I draw upon your strength and your support in ways that you will never know. And I am here today because I am gay. And because because maybe I can make a difference to help others have an easier and more hopeful time. Regardless, for me, I feel a personal obligation and a social responsibility. I also do it selfishly because I'm tired of hiding and I'm tired of lying by omission. I suffered for years because I was scared to be out. My spirit suffered, my mental health suffered, and my relationship suffered. and I'm standing here today with all of you on the other side of that pain. And I am young, yes. But what I have learned is that love, the beauty of it, the joy of it, and yes, even the pain of it, is the most incredible gift to give and to receive as a human being. And we deserve to experience love fully, equally, without shame and without compromise. There are too many kids out there suffering from bullying, rejection, or simply being mistreated because of who they are. Too many dropouts, too much abuse, too many homeless, too many suicides. You can change that, and you are changing it. But you never needed me to tell you that. And that's why this was a little bit weird.
So I thought, I was trying to think, what is the most useful thing that I could, what could I say that could actually be helpful or useful to you in the future? And I thought I'd perhaps tell the story of how I sort of came to be here. How did some of these things happen? And maybe there's some lessons there, because I often find myself wondering, how did this happen? So when I was young, I didn't really know what I was going to do when I got older. People kept asking me, but then eventually I thought that the idea of inventing things would be really cool. And the reason I thought that was because I read a quote from Arthur C. Clarke, which said that a sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, and that's really true. If you go back, say 300 years, the things that we take for granted today would be you'd be burned at the stake for. Being able to fly, that's crazy. Being able to see over long distances, being able to communicate, having effectively with the internet a group mind of sorts, and having access to all the world's information instantly from almost anywhere on the earth. This is stuff that really would be magic, or would be considered magic in times past. In fact, I think it actually goes beyond that, because there are many things that we take for granted today that weren't even imagined in times past. They weren't even in the realm of magic. So it actually goes beyond that. So I thought, well, if I can do some of those things, basically if I can advance technology, then that's like magic, and that would be really cool. And I also had sort of a slight existential crisis, because I was trying to figure out what does it all mean? Like, what's the purpose of things? And I came to the conclusion that if we can advance the knowledge of the world, if we can do things that expand the scope and scale of consciousness, then we're better able to ask the right questions and become more enlightened, and that's really the only way forward. So I studied physics and business, because I figured in order to do a lot of these things, you need to know how the universe works, and you need to know how the economy works. And you also need to be able to bring a lot of people together to work with you to create something, because it's very difficult to do something as an individual if it's a significant technology. So I originally came out to California to try to figure out how to improve the energy density of electric vehicles, basically to try to figure out if there was an advanced capacitor that could serve as an alternative to batteries. And that was in '95, and that's also when the internet started to happen. And I thought, well, I can either pursue this technology where success may not be one of the possible outcomes, which is always tricky, or participate in the internet and be part of it. So I decided to drop out. Now, obviously, fortunately, we're past graduation, so I can't be accused of recommending that to you. So did some internet stuff. did a few things here and there. One of which was PayPal. And I think maybe it's helpful to say one of the things that was important then in the creation of PayPal was kind of how it started, because initially, the initial thought was with PayPal was to create an agglomeration of financial services, so you have one place where all of your financial services needs would be seamlessly integrated and work smoothly. And then we had like a little feature which was to do email payments. And whenever we'd show the system off to someone, we'd show the hard part, which was the agglomeration of financial services, which was quite difficult to put together. Nobody was interested. Then we'd show people email payments, which was actually quite easy, and everybody was interested. So this is, I think it's important to take feedback from your environment. You want to be as closed loop as possible. So we focused on email payments and really try to make that work, and that's what really got things to take off. But if we hadn't responded to what people said, then we probably would not have been successful. So it's important to look for things like that and focus on them when you see them, and correct your prior assumptions. And then going from PayPal, I thought, well, what are some of the other problems that are likely to most affect the future of humanity? It really wasn't from the perspective of what's the rank-ordered best way to make money, which is okay, but it was really what I think is going to most affect the future of humanity. So I think the biggest terrestrial problem we've got is sustainable energy, but the production and consumption of energy in a sustainable manner. If we don't solve that this century, we're in deep trouble. And then the other one being the extension of life beyond Earth to make life multiplanetary. So that's the basis for. The latter is the basis for SpaceX, and the former is the basis for Tesla and Solar City. And when I started SpaceX, initially I thought that, well, there's no way one could possibly start a rocket company. I wasn't that crazy. But then I thought, well, what is a way to increase NASA's budget? That was actually my initial goal. So I thought, well, if we can do a low-cost mission to Mars, something called Mars Oasis, which would land seeds with seeds in dehydrated nutrient gel, and you hydrate them upon landing, and then you'd have this great sort of money shot of green plants on a red background, and the public tends to respond to precedents and superlatives. And this would be the first life on Mars, the furthest that life's ever traveled, as far as we know. And I thought, well, that would get people really excited, and therefore increase NASA's budget. So obviously, the financial outcome from such a mission would probably be zero. So anything better than that was on the upside. So I actually went to Russia 3 times to look at buying a refurbished ICBM. Because that was the best deal. And I can tell you it was very weird going there in late 2001, 2002, going to the Russian rocket forces and saying, I'd like to buy 2 of your biggest rockets, but you can keep the nuke. That's a lot more. And that was 10 years ago, I guess, so they thought I was crazy, but I did have money, so that was okay. And after making several trips to Russia, I came to the conclusion that actually my initial impression was wrong about. Because my initial thought was, well, that there's not enough will to explore and expand beyond Earth and have a Mars base and that kind of thing. But I came to the conclusion that was wrong. In fact, there's plenty of will, particularly in the United States, because the United States is a nation of explorers, of people who came here from from other parts of the world. I think the United States is really a distillation of the spirit of human exploration. So, but if people think it's impossible, then, or it's going to completely break the federal budget, then they're not going to do it. So after my third trip, I said, okay, well, what we really need to do here is try to solve the space transport problem, and started SpaceX. This was against the advice of pretty much everyone I talked to. One friend made me sit down and watch a bunch of videos of rockets blowing up. Let me tell you, he wasn't far wrong. It was tough going there in the beginning because I'd never built anything physical. I mean, I'd built like little model rockets as a kid and that kind of thing, but I never had a company that built anything physical. So I had to figure out how to do all these things and bring together the right team of people, and so we did all that and then failed 3 times. It was tough going. Because the thing about a rocket is that the passing grade is 100%, and you don't get to actually test the rocket in the real environment that it's going to be in. So I think the best analogy for rocket engineering is like if you want to create a really complicated bit of software, you can't run the software as an integrated whole, and you can't run it on the computer it's intended to run on. But the first time you put it all together and run it on that computer, it must run with no bugs. That's basically the essence of it. So we missed the mark there. The first launch, I was picking up bits of rocket near the launch site. It was a bit sad. But we learned with each successive flight, and we're able to, eventually with the 4th flight in 2008, reach orbit. And that was also with the last bit of money that we had. So thank goodness that happened. I think the saying is 4th time's the charm. So we got the Falcon 1 to orbit, and then began to scale that up to the Falcon 9, which is about an order of magnitude more thrust. It's around 1 million pounds of thrust, and we managed to get that to orbit, and then developed a Dragon spacecraft, which recently was able to dock and return to Earth from the space station. That was thanks. That was a white-knuckled event. Yeah, it's a huge relief. Still can't quite believe it actually happened. But there's a lot more that must happen beyond this in order for humanity to become a spacefaring civilization, ultimately a multi-planet species. And that's something I think it's vitally important, and I hope that some of you will participate in that, either at SpaceX or at other companies, because it's just really one of the most important things for the preservation and extension of consciousness. I mean, it's worth noting, as I'm sure people are aware, that the Earth has been around for 4 billion years, and civilization, at least in terms of having writing, has been around for 10,000 years, and that's being generous. So it's really it's somewhat of a tenuous existence that civilization and consciousness, as we know it, has been on Earth. And I think I'm actually fairly optimistic about the future of Earth. So I don't want to sort of people to have the wrong impression that I think we're all about to die. I think things will most likely be okay for a long time on Earth, but not for sure, but most likely. But even if it's sort of 99% likely, a 1% chance is still worth spending a fair bit of effort to ensure that we've backed up the biosphere, planetary redundancy, if you will, and so I think it's really quite important. And in order to do that, there's a breakthrough that needs to occur, which is to create a rapidly and completely reusable transport system to Mars, which is one of those things that's right on the borderline of of impossible. But that's sort of the thing that we're going to try to achieve there with SpaceX. And then on the Tesla front, the goal with Tesla was really to try to show that what electric cars can do, because people had the wrong impression. We had to change people's perception of an electric vehicle, because they used to think of it as something that was slow and ugly and had low range, kind of like a golf cart. So that's why we created the Tesla Roadster, to show that you can be fast, attractive, and long range. And it's amazing how, even though you can show that something works on paper, and the calculations are very clear, until you actually have the physical object and they can drive it, it doesn't really sink in for people. And so that I think is something worth noting. If you're going to create a company, the first thing you should try to do is create a working prototype. Everything looks great on PowerPoint. you can make anything work on PowerPoint. But if you have an actual demonstration article, even if it's in primitive form, that's much more effective for convincing people. So we made the Tesla Roadster, and now we're coming out soon with the Model S, which is a four-door sedan. Because after we made the Tesla Roadster, people said, "Oh, sure. We always knew you could make a car like that. It's an expensive car, and it's low volume, and it's small, and all that. But you couldn't make a real car." I'm like, "Okay, fine. We got to make that too." So that's coming out soon, yeah. So that's the, I think the where things are, and hopefully there are some lessons to be drawn there. But I think the overarching point I want to make is that you guys are the magicians of the 21st century. Don't let anything hold you back. Imagination is the limit, and go out there and create some magic. Thank you.
The college and all who have come to celebrate this day with you, and to recognize the amazing futures that await you. 4 years ago, maybe a little more or less, for some of you, this meant I've got to get a lozenge. Thank you. I told the trustees I was sitting with, after hearing Tala's speech, I didn't think I could get through it. So we'll blame allergy instead of emotion. But you arrived at this campus You arrived from all over. You joined students from 49 states and 58 countries. Now, maybe you felt like you belonged right away. I doubt it. But maybe some of you did, and you've never wavered. But maybe you changed your major 3 times and your hairstyle twice as many as that. Or maybe after your first month of classes, you made a frantic collect call. Ask your parents what that was. Back to Illinois to tell your mother and father you weren't smart enough to be here. My father said, "Okay, come home." My mother said, "You have to stick it out." That's what happened to me. But whatever your path, you dream big. You probably, in true Wellesley fashion, planned your academic and extracurricular schedule right down to the minute. So this day that you've been waiting for, and maybe dreading a little, is finally here. As President Johnson said, I spoke at my commencement 48 years ago. I came back 25 years ago to speak at another commencement. I couldn't think of any place I'd rather be this year than right here. Now, you may have heard that things didn't exactly go the way I planned. But you know what? I'm doing okay. I've gotten to spend time with my family, especially my amazing grandchildren. I was going to give the entire commencement speech about them, but was talked out of it. Long walks in the woods, organizing my closets, right? I won't lie, Chardonnay helped a little too. But here's what helped most of all. Remembering who I am, where I come from, and what I believe. And that is what Wellesley means to me. This college gave me so much. It launched me on a life of service and provided friends that I still treasure. So wherever your life takes you, I hope that Wellesley serves as that kind of touchstone for you. Now, if any of you are nervous about what you'll be walking into when you leave the campus, I know that feeling. I do remember my commencement. I'd been asked by my classmates to speak. I stayed up all night with my friends, the third floor of Davis, writing and editing the speech by the time we gathered in the academic quad. I was exhausted, my hair was a wreck. The mortarboard made it even worse. But I was pretty oblivious to all of that because what my friends had asked me to do was to talk about our worries and about our ability and responsibility to do something about them. We didn't trust government, authority figures, or really anyone over 30. In large part thanks to years of heavy casualties and dishonest official statements about Vietnam, and deep differences over civil rights and poverty here at home. We were asking urgent questions about whether women, people of color, religious minorities, immigrants would ever be treated with dignity and respect. And by the way, we were furious about the past presidential election of a man whose presidency would eventually end in disgrace with his impeachment for obstruction of justice. After firing the person running the investigation into him at the Department of Justice. But here's what I want you to know. We got through that tumultuous time. And once again, we began to thrive as our society changed laws and opened the circle of opportunity and rights wider and wider for more Americans. We revved up the engines of innovation and imagination. We turned back a tide of intolerance and embraced inclusion. The we who did those things were more than those in power who wanted to change course. It was millions of ordinary citizens, especially young people, who voted, marched, and organized. Now, of course, today has some important differences. The advance of technology, the impact of the internet, our fragmented media landscape make it easier than ever to splinter ourselves into echo chambers. We can shut out contrary voices, avoid ever questioning our basic assumptions. Extreme views are given powerful microphones. Leaders willing to exploit fear and skepticism have tools at their disposal that were unimaginable when I graduated. And here's what that means to you, the class of 2017. You are graduating at a time when there is a full-fledged assault on truth and reason. Just log on. Just log on to social media for 10 seconds. It will hit you right in the face. People denying science, concocting elaborate, hurtful conspiracy theories about child abuse rings operating out of pizza parlors, drumming up rampant fear about undocumented immigrants, Muslims, minorities, the poor, turning neighbor against neighbor and sowing division at a time when we desperately need unity. As the history majors among you here today know all too well, when people in power invent their own facts and attack those who question them, it can mark the beginning of the end of a free society. That is not hyperbole. It is what authoritarian regimes throughout history have done. They attempt to control reality, not just our laws and our rights and our budgets, but our thoughts and beliefs. Right now, some of you might wonder, well, why am I telling you all this? You don't own a cable news network. You don't control the Facebook algorithm. You aren't a member of Congress yet. Because I believe with all my heart that the future of America, indeed the future of the world, depends on brave, thoughtful people like you insisting on truth and integrity right now, every day. You didn't create these circumstances, but you have the power to change them. Václav Havel, the dissident playwright, first president of the Czech Republic, wrote an essay called The Power of the Powerless. And in it, he said, the moment someone breaks through in one place, when one person cries out, the emperor is naked. When a single person breaks the rules of the game, thus exposing it as a game, everything suddenly appears in another light. What he's telling us is if you feel powerless, don't. Don't let anyone tell you your voice doesn't matter. In the years to come, there will be trolls galore, online and in person, eager to tell you that you don't have anything worthwhile to say or anything meaningful to contribute. They may even call you a nasty woman. some may take a slightly more sophisticated approach and say your elite education means you are out of touch with real people. In other words, sit down and shut up. Now, in my experience, that's the last thing you should ever tell a Wellesley graduate. And here's the good news. What you've learned these 4 years is precisely what you need to face the challenges of this moment. First, you learned critical thinking. I can still remember the professors who challenged me to make decisions with good information, rigorous reasoning, real deliberation. I know we didn't have much of that in this past election, but we have to get back to it. After all, in the words of my predecessor in the Senate, Daniel Patrick Moynihan, everyone is entitled to his own opinion, but not his own facts. And your education gives you more than knowledge. It gives you the power to keep learning and apply what you know to improve your life and the lives of others. Because you are beginning your careers with one of the best educations in the world, I think you do have a special responsibility to give others the chance to learn and think for themselves and to learn from them so that we can have the kind of open, fact-based debate necessary for our democracy to survive and flourish. And along the way, you may be convinced to change your mind from time to time. You know what? That's okay. Take it from me, the former president of the Wellesley College Young Republicans. Second, you learn the value of an open mind and an open society. At their best, our colleges and universities are free market places of ideas, embracing a diversity of perspectives and backgrounds. That's our country at our best, too. An open, inclusive, diverse society is the opposite of an antidote to a closed society where there is only one right way to think, believe, and act. Here at Wellesley, you've worked hard to turn this ideal into a reality. But the only way our society will ever become a place where everyone truly belongs is if all of us speak openly and honestly about who we are, what we're going through. So keep doing that. And let me add that your learning, listening, and serving should include people who don't agree with you politically. A lot of our fellow Americans have lost faith in the existing economic, social, political, and cultural conditions of our country. Many feel left behind, left out, looked down on. Their anger and alienation has proved a fertile ground for false promises and false information. Their economic problems and cultural anxiety must be addressed, or they will continue to sign up to be foot soldiers in the ongoing conflict between us and them. The opportunity is here. Millions of people will be hurt by the policies, including this budget, that is being considered. And many of those same people don't want dreamers deported or health care taken away. Many don't want to retreat on civil rights, women's rights, and LGBT rights. So if your outreach is rebuffed, keep trying. Do the right thing anyway. We're going to share this future. Better do so with open hearts and outstretched hands than closed minds and clenched fists. And third, here at Wellesley, you learned the power of service. Because while free and fierce conversations in classrooms, dorm rooms, dining halls are vital, they only get us so far. You have to turn those ideas and those values into action. This college has always understood that. The motto, which you've heard twice already, not to be ministered unto, but to minister, is as true today as it ever was. You think about it, it's kind of a old-fashioned rendering of President Kennedy's great statement, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. Not long ago, I got a note from a group of Wellesley alums and students who had supported me in the campaign. They worked their hearts out. And like a lot of people, they're wondering, what do we do now? Well, I think there's only one answer: keep going. Don't be afraid of your ambition, of your dreams, or even your anger. Those are powerful forces, but harness them to make a difference in the world. Stand up for truth and reason. Do it in private, in conversations with your family, your friends, your workplace, your neighborhoods, and do it in public, in Medium posts, on social media, or grab a sign and head to a protest. Make defending truth and a free society a core value of your life every single day. So wherever you wind up next, the minute you get there, register to vote. And while you're at it, encourage others to do so. And then vote in every election, not just the presidential ones. Bring others to vote. Fight every effort to restrict the right of law-abiding citizens to be able to vote as well. Get involved in a cause that matters to you. Pick one, start somewhere. You don't have to do everything, but don't sit on the sidelines. And you know what? Get to know your elected officials. If you disagree with them, ask questions. Challenge them. Better yet, run for office yourself someday. Now, that's not for everybody, I know. And it's certainly not for the faint of heart. But it's worth it. As they say in one of my favorite movies, A League of Their Own, it's supposed to be hard. The hard is what makes it great. As Tala said, the day after the election, I did want to speak particularly to women and girls everywhere, especially young women, because you are valuable and powerful and deserving of every chance and opportunity in the world. Not just your future, but our future depends on you believing that. We need your smarts, of course, but we also need your compassion, your curiosity, your stubbornness. And remember, you are even more powerful because you have so many people supporting you, cheering you on, standing with you through good times and bad. You know, our culture often celebrates people who appear to go it alone. But the truth is, that's not how life works. Anything worth doing takes a village. And you build that village by investing love and time into your relationships. And in those moments, for whatever reason, when it might feel bleak, think back to this place, where women have the freedom to take risks, make mistakes, even fail in front of each other. Channel the strength of your Wellesley classmates and experiences. I guarantee you, it'll help you stand up a little straighter, feel a little braver, knowing that the things you joked about and even took for granted can be your secret weapons for your future. One of the things that gave me the most hope and joy after the election, when I really needed it, was meeting so many young people who told me that my defeat had not defeated them. And I'm going to devote a lot of my future to helping you make your mark in the world. I created a new organization called Onward Together to help recruit and train future leaders, organize for real and lasting change. The work never ends. When I graduated and made that speech, I did say, and some of you might have pictures from that day with this on it, the challenge now is to practice politics as the art of making what appears to be impossible possible. That was true then, it's truer today. I never could have imagined where I would have been 48 years later. Certainly never that I would have run for the presidency of the United States or seen progress for women in all walks of life over the course of my lifetime. And yes, put millions of more cracks in that highest and hardest glass ceiling. Because just in those years, doors that once seemed sealed to women are now open. They're ready for you to walk through or charge through, to advance the struggle for equality, justice, and freedom. So whatever your dreams are today, dream even bigger. Wherever you have set your sights, raise them even higher. And above all, keep going. Don't do it because I asked you to. Do it for yourselves. Do it for truth and reason. Do it because the history of Wellesley and this country tells us it's often during the darkest times when you can do the most good. Double down on your passions. Be bold. Try, fail. Try again and lean on each other. Hold on to your values. Never give up on those dreams. I'm very optimistic about the future because I think after we've tried a lot of other things, we get back to the business of America. I believe in you with all my heart. I want you to believe in yourselves. So go forth, be great, but first, graduate.
I've been asked to speak about global transition and how the world is changing. And also how one should act through that change, how one should think about acting through the turbulence that is obviously going to come. I heard in the introduction that I was a member of parliament until a few months ago. I don't think when I joined politics, 2004, I ever imagined what I see going on in our country. It was way outside anything that I had ever imagined. To be the first person to get a full criminal sentence on defamation, get the maximum sentence and to be disqualified from parliament. I didn't imagine that something like this was possible. But then think it's actually given me a huge opportunity, probably much bigger than the opportunity I would have sitting in Parliament. That's just the way politics works. I think the drama started really about 6 months ago. We were struggling. The entire opposition is struggling in India. Huge financial dominance, institutional capture. We were struggling fight the democratic fight in our country. And we decided none of the systems were working. Democracy isn't just about an opposition party. It's about a set of institutions that support the opposition party. And those institutions were either captured, certainly weren't playing the role that they're supposed to play. And so we decided to do something quite strange. We just decided to walk across the country. And we never imagined for a second what would happen when we walked across the country. What would happen not just politically, not in terms of the type of response we got, but what would happen to us when we walked across our country. All of us. There was started with about 125 people, and it fundamentally transformed the way we think about our country, about our people, about politics, about what is important. A lot of people ask me, what's the lesson you've learned from this? And for a long time, I couldn't quite say what it was. I couldn't answer. I'd say, I've picked up so much information overload, I can't really tell you what this has done. It was the most beautiful experience of my life, by far. It was very painful. I had a knee problem. It's one of those things you get up and you say, okay, we're going to walk 4,000 kilometers. Some level, crazy thing to even conceptualize. And I thought I'm reasonably fit. I thought shouldn't be too difficult. I calculated in my mind, I said, well, what's it going to be? It's going to be 25 kilometers a day. No big deal. And then I had a knee problem. And then the whole thing, the way life works, everything just transformed itself. We met what I would best describe as the soul of our country. And very quickly, in a week, 10 days, a silence descended on us. We couldn't speak. We went from trying to explain things to people. This is why agriculture isn't working. This is how you should think about education. This is how, the healthcare system should look. This is what, we should be doing. And suddenly we all went silent. And we went silent because we came into contact with a intelligence that we had never seen, that we had never even conceptualized could exist. Farmers who many people would say, don't have an education, and then who are explaining things to us in a way that we just are in stunned silence. Right? And we saw this with farmers, with laborers, with small businessmen, everybody. And so this silence descended on us. And we just sort of stopped talking and started listening. And we heard tales of immense suffering. I mean, I can think immediately, I thought about one which sort of to me, embodied the spirit of my country, our country. I was walking, and a young man came and started walking with me. And I put my arm on his shoulder, and suddenly I realized he didn't have arms. So he had no arms. And I tried to sort of make him a bit comfortable, didn't want him to feel that I know you don't have arms. He wasn't too bothered. And we started talking, and I asked him, listen, what do you do? And he looked at me and he said, I'm a mechanic. The immediate thing in my mind was, he's lying. How can he be a mechanic? He doesn't have arms. Impossible. So I said, well, I didn't want to be direct. I didn't want to say, you're lying. I said, listen, what cars do you repair? He says, I don't repair cars, I repair motorcycles. So I said, oh yeah, what motorcycle do you repair? And he started listing all the motorcycles. So I said, can I come and see what you do? And he said, yeah. And then he proceeded to take us and show us how he serviced a motorcycle with his feet. It's the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life. He took apart the entire engine with his feet, and he put the entire engine back together with his feet. I can't do it with my hands. So we saw these type of things happening, and we saw clearly the disconnect between our politics and our people. And that disconnect is visible in the United States, it's visible in the rest of the world. There's a huge divide between the people and the politics. Politics is talking about something else, people are talking about something else. We experienced this multiple times. And as I was walking through this, I kept thinking, something puzzled me. What I couldn't understand is that while we were walking, we had no force. Force was completely on the other side. Other side had police, they had the institutions, they had the media, they had social media, they had everything. And here was this group of people. In a few weeks it became thousands and then millions, just walking. And all the force at the disposal of the government of India could do nothing. And the more they tried to apply force, the less it worked. And so this puzzled me. I was like, how come they have all the force, they have all the systems, and nothing's happening? Why, for example, are they just not physically stopping us? And this was a question that just kept rotating in my mind. I'm like, why is it that they have the force, but they don't have power? And I realized that force and power are two completely different things. Most people, politicians in particular, confuse force and power, and they think they're the same thing. They're not the same thing. They're completely different things. Power is an act of imagination. Power is in the present. It is not linear. And power comes when you go close to the truth. The reason we could not be stopped by force is because we were weaving around near the truth. And what was really interesting to me was it didn't matter how much force the other side had. They simply could not transfer that force into power. And they kept saying to us, people would ask us, so when are you going to stop? We're not going to stop, we're going all the way to Kashmir. No, you're not going to be able to go to Kashmir. They told me in Kashmir that, look, if you walk the last 4 days, you're going to get killed. They're going to throw hand grenades on you. I was like, fine, no problem, let them do it. Right? I want to see the person who throws a hand grenade on me. And the security guys, I mean, the people from the establishment there, I could see in their face that they just couldn't understand what I was saying. Right? So, this distinction in your life, in your work, is very important. It doesn't matter how much force the other person has. You can still have power. And it is determined by how close you are and how precise you are with regards to the truth. Now, you can see these moments. Mine was a very small one. You can see these moments of power versus truth in history. Big ones. Example, my leader, Mahatma Gandhi, fought the entire British Empire. He had no force. They had all the force, all the structures, the army, everything. Didn't matter. Right? The Declaration of Independence here in the United States, again, a moment of power, a moment of truth. Doesn't matter how much force the other person has. So why am I telling you this? Why am I making this distinction between power and force? And what does it have to do with the transition that we're facing? Well, the transition we're facing, there are 3 transitions. There is a revolution in mobility. There is a revolution in the energy system. And there's a revolution in connectivity, what we call AI and data. These are the 3 revolutions that are taking place. And they're going to affect everything. The last time we had a similar transition, a transition of energy, a transition of mobility, we had 2 world wars, right? And it's in times like that, of great uncertainty, of turbulence, that you need acts of imagination. Now, while I was coming here to Stanford University, I was thinking about it. All the work that you do, a lot of the work that you do, robotics, AI, where was the moment of power? The moment of power was when President Kennedy said, let's go to the moon, right? That was not an act of force. That was an act of imagination. And from that, a lot of the work you do has emerged, evolved. And that's the type of relationship the United States and India should be thinking of. A relationship that's based on the true reality of our people. We know in India a lot about the reality of our people. All of you know, you live in our great country. You know the levels of poverty that we have. You also know the amazing amount of skills that we have. The United States has the world's cutting-edge technology. We already have a bridge between us. It's important that this bridge is not simply a bridge based on force, but it's a bridge based on the reality of our people, on an understanding of the realities of both our people. India has some huge advantages. In a data-centric world, we have one of the largest pools of data. You over here are testament, many of you, to our skill in technology, in software. There are many more young people like you back home who don't have the opportunity you have, who could augment our capability. So that's what I wanted to leave you with. I think there are difficult times, but there are also times of opportunity. I think there are times when acts of imagination, as I called it, acts of true power, will resonate and can transform the way we think of ourselves. Thank you.